We're on to episode 9 of season 1, and this one's titled Space. And I think you said that this was the most expensive episode in the first season, or it was a big budgeted episode anyway.
If my memory serves me correct, I'm pretty sure, because I seem to recall that the reason that was such a surprise is because it's such a surprise. I can't see how this episode could possibly have been the most expensive up till this point in the series. Now, I can only assume it's because they must have built the sets where they have the the shuttle command kind of place, but it's not like it's a brilliantly realised kind of expensive looking detailed set. It looks more like something off Star Trek, to be honest. But
definitely, if you hadn't said it was like one of the more expensive episodes, I probably wouldn't have noticed. But I was looking for where the money had gone, and I think maybe one of the producers needed a pool or something. And
I think from the look of it that maybe they tried several different things with the visual effects for the ghost that kind of takes over, and maybe they just couldn't get that right, and as a result they just kept on burning up money. But it just it does not show when you come on into this episode off the back of ice. Man, does it show. I mean, not to show my hand too soon, but I mean, I remember this episode because when it first aired on TV, when all the first series aired on TV, because I'd been hooked since the pilot, and I just so happened to have taped the pilot off TV. And because I liked that pilot so much, I then taped every episode. So I literally religiously taped every episode off the TV because I wanted to keep them. And I was gutted because I'd been out with my friend on the night that Space had aired, and I literally missed the episode. And I was gutted, absolutely gutted. Couldn't believe I'd missed an episode of the X-Files. So I didn't actually get around to seeing this particular episode until it came around on the box set, when they released the video box set. And I don't know, I guess it was fate. I guess it was God's way of telling me, you know what, you don't need to see this episode. you can go without seeing this one and you'll be okay.
And that's just another reason why I don't have friends. So we'll jump straight into this episode. So the episode opens up with a news report about pictures coming back from Mars, or is it? Yeah, Mars. Yeah,
from Mars. Yeah.
And they found some water on it. They found a rock formation that looks kind of like a human face. And then it moves into a proper news report where the guy from the news report, who I've seen plenty of things before, but for some reason I couldn't pick any of them out. He ends up going home, gets undressed, has a drink, goes to bed, and his nightmares of a space mission going wrong, saying the phrase, "Something's out here," and then the ceiling turns into this ominous face.
Yeah,
and straight away I'm thinking, wow, it's the astronaut's wife. You know, the movie.
Johnny Depp. Yeah.
Yep.
Was this not done before that film?
No.
Was it not? Blimey.
No.
Is that film really that old? Good grief! I thought that was like mid-90s, but right, okay.
No. The astronaut's wife came out after this episode.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, like, it's just another way that the X-Files have got this small, wee condensed episode that have been kind of stolen and turned into like a big budget movie later on.
Oh man, couldn't they have stolen one of the better episodes?
But what do you make of the opening of this and the introduction to one of our main characters and this ghostly apparition, or this strange face that will be reoccurring throughout this episode?
Yeah, this guy. I mean, it's only in the next scene when he's when he's basically talking to the other two guys in the control room, and he's telling them that it's sandstorm. Oh no, it's actually in this report, isn't it? He says that it's all sandstorms. It's not, there's no life on Mars. It's all sandstorms, and so right off the bat, you get the sense that this guy is going to be someone who, is going to brush someone like Mulder, for example, to one side and just say, "Look, I don't believe in all your mumbo jumbo stuff." So that kind of paints him right off the bat as someone that we're not really going to like. And the performance of this guy, I mean, like you say, he seems very familiar. He seems like someone I've seen in, loads of these kind of little character roles, but I can't off the top of my head think where. But yeah, he doesn't really come across as a likable guy to me in this. He comes across as very wooden, in fact, he looks like he can't be arsed. He looks like he's read the script. He, all the way through this episode, in fact, he has this look on his face like he literally just does not want to be there.
Yeah, you're probably right. And very early on in the episode, I wish I wasn't there either. So yeah, I mean, straight after that, you go into the theme music and the tune, and then you go into the first main scene, and it's a mission control. And it's the launch of a rocket, and it's supposed to be very tense, and in the last few seconds that it's aborted, that the mission is aborted. And then it jumps to Mulder and Scully, who have a clandestine meeting with somebody from NASA. It seems kind of covert and out of the way, but for some reason they're meeting in a public staircase, just out in the middle of a street. It's just that it's a very odd scene.
Yeah, it feels a bit reminiscent of that Deep Throat scene that we had in Ghost in the Machine, where literally, like, almost as if they've just gone outside the lot at Fox and just said, "Look, we can do this scene anywhere. Let's just go to the nearest possible stairs outside some building and just do it there." But yeah, if you're meeting in secret, if you don't want people to know, why are you meeting so out in the open? It doesn't make much sense, but hey ho. So it's a woman. So we have a woman who meets them, and it's someone who works in the control room with the guy that we saw at the beginning, and that guy's name is Marcus. His name is Marcus Aurelius Belt. Sounds like a character from Gladiator, but no way near as thrilling. So this woman, Michelle, she comes to meet Mulder and Scully, and she believes basically that this mission has been sabotaged. And the reason she believes that is that she has an X-ray, what looks like an X-ray, a scan, whatever you want to call it, of a piece of the shuttle, somewhere inside the shuttle, this piece that has been severely damaged. But according to her, there's no way this piece could be damaged in such a way, because it's made of this really hard titanium, so it couldn't be damaged in such a way without anyone noticing. So it must be some form of sabotage. Well, she comes to Mulder and Scully because she knows they investigate the unexplained. She can't explain how somebody could have sabotaged this piece without being noticed. So that obviously gets Mulder quite intrigued. Just while we're on the subject, while that scene is rolling along, we find that the director of this episode, his name is Will Graham. So for any Manhunter fans out there, any Hannibal fans, Will Graham directed this episode, but that's an aside.
So after this scene with she also mentions in this scene as well that her husband or her fiance is going to be on the next launch mission, which is happening fairly soon, and she wants them down just to help in case there's going to be any further sabotage. So in the next scene,
this is really her story. The thing with this episode is I'm not engaged with it at all, because literally Mulder and Scully kind of do nothing. They spectate throughout the entire episode. There's one scene later on when they're digging through files, but that's literally it. The rest of this episode just feels, I don't know, there's just a real disconnect between Mulder and Scully and what's going on, despite the fact that they're trying to tell us Mulder is, hero worshipping this guy, this Marcus guy. But I don't feel any of it. And it feels like, really, this is her story. This is Michelle's story. She's the one who's got a personal attachment, a personal investment in what's going on. Basically, if this shuttle doesn't come down, her husband dies. So she has every reason to get it down. It feels like her story, and Mulder and Scully are just, they're just there. Yeah, so Mulder and Scully have a chat about why anyone would want to sabotage the space program. They're basically driving around on this little buggy, going around NASA, or what I can only assume is NASA. And
I got from this that Scully was almost asking a question just to sort of pass the time, just for the fact of having conversation. It's almost rhetorical. And then Mulder just comes out with this knockout answer triade, the stuff that just makes perfect sense and just ties into this character again.
I've got to say, in this scene, I didn't pay attention to anything Mulder said. It feels, even for Mulder, a little bit forced to me. And it's just, like I say, they're driving around on this buggy. And other than showing us that, Mulder is clearly very interested in the space program, he's quite passionate about it, he's a bit geeky about it. It doesn't really do much else for me.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. It's like Scully offers up this question, but it just feels like chit chat. It's not something that she's really looking for an answer that comes so like the way it does come. And usually Mulder in these kind of circumstances would just have a throwaway joke or something like that. He wouldn't really answer it as vehemently as he does.
Yeah. And we see this followed up by the next scene in which they meet Marcus.
Just before we get to that next scene, there's a shot in this one where just at the end of the conversation it pans up to this big ticking clock. And this becomes apparent throughout the episode. There's lots of shots of this sort of red digital clock throughout the episode.
Yeah, counting down.
Yeah, but we don't really know, or we haven't been given like a time scale of when something's counting down. It's almost as if it's there to add tension, but there's no tension being built from it. It's just, guess how much money we spent on this big, massive clock.
Yeah, it's not like 24, is it? When that clock comes in on 24, you feel it, because you're like, usually when the clock comes up, you get this convergence of all these images where people are each in their own dire situations, and you're like, blimey, where do they go from here? Yeah, there's no tension here. And I find that in most of the episode, to be honest, particularly in the control room scenes where everyone's kind of scuttling around and trying to bring the boys back, and I'm not invested. I'm not tense in any way. I just don't feel it. I'm not feeling it at all throughout. So Mulder and Scully go in to meet Marcus, and Mulder is clearly very starstruck. He basically worships this guy and gives this little kind of speech about how when he was a kid he sat up late at night watching this guy kind of go into space, and he just turns into a little boy basically. Yeah, and I think Scully's kind of taken aback by this, because she kind of takes lead and she is all business, asking the kind of questions that need to be asked. So the NASA guy doesn't really like Scully. She shows him the photo of the damaged part, and he becomes very, very dismissive of the whole sabotage theory. He just out and out doesn't accept it. But
with fair reason, he gives that a reason as to why it's highly improbable that ever happened. The part could be damaged in that way. It's just like an anomaly to him. It's not been a deliberate sabotage. Yeah,
at this point, when he says it, it sounds reasonable. It's not until we go to see someone else in a little while that it then begins to sound unreasonable.
And it's when Mulder and Scully leave the office, Scully just turns around and just says, like, doesn't he want to get his autograph? She's just letting them know that, that was unprofessional. Yeah. Kind of annoyed with you for that.
I saw you fanboying out there. From there, Mulder and Scully talk to this expert, which, as I say, when they talk to him, he kind of makes clear just how safe the so-called sabotage part is, and just how many people work to keep it that way. He just talks about, thousands of dollars and thousands of men and women kind of go into making sure and double checking and triple checking that these parts are safe. So yeah, it starts to sound quite unreasonable that a faulty part would have been fitted into this shuttle.
And the guy almost edges towards the bureaucracy of the NASA, because they say that they're not really part of NASA. They're sort of like a subcontract group almost that would deal with it. And then the shot just pans up to the wall where we see this big ticking clock again, even though we don't have a time scale, and standing above it is Marcus watching the two investigate. It just seems a bit strange. It's just kind of setting them up as the bad guy or the arch criminal of this episode.
Yeah. It's all very kind of signposted, isn't it? It's like it's a little bit Columbo. It's like we already know who the bad guy is. We just need to see how Columbo is going to actually catch him. Only in this case, obviously, it's Mulder and Scully. Well, Scully is the one who is very quick to suspect Marcus, but Mulder kind of lets his hero worship get in the way, and he can't believe that Marcus would be behind it, and he actually goes so far as to suggest that the X-ray itself might be bogus, which is quite bizarre for Mulder, because he's so quick to jump on anything as a piece of evidence, such as a hand-drawn picture of a woman by a tramp, and yet here he's
a bloody triangle in a diner.
It's just... And here he's got like a very clear X-ray of a damaged part that would be, I would imagine, very hard to get your hands on. Yes. What would it be? There would be very few people who could actually get hold of this thing.
It's not a commercial equipment.
No. Yet Mulder's like, it's forged. It's clearly a forgery. So yeah, it's a bit. They're laying it on thick. That's my trouble with this. Like we've had literally every scene with Mulder so far has been laid on thick. Just how much of a NASA fanboy and an astronaut kind of fanboy Mulder is, and it becomes a little bit too much to believe, too much to bear for me. Given what we know about Mulder's history,
it seems like they're really trying to rack up the tension and make it a very tense-filled episode, but it's just not there in any scenes whatsoever.
No.
There's no rush. There's no personal involvement. You have no buy-in to any of the characters. You just don't care.
No.
So the next scene is lunchtime, and everything's just going super, but you're just hanging on, waiting on the butt almost, which comes later on when Mulder and Scully are actually leaving their hotel, where Michelle rushes to get them to let them know that there's been a major issue. Communications have gone down, and they need to get back to the control base as soon as possible.
Can I just say as well that what do you make of the control panels in this supposed NASA control room?
It looks like they've dug up the sets from Space 1999 or
it really does.
Something similar.
There's no labelling on anything. It's literally just like panels and panels of red buttons. It's
as if somebody's just went screen, red flashing light. Can we get a keyboard in there? Screen, red flashing light. And can you just hold it together with MDF?
Yeah.
It's they've not put the money into this set. Surely they haven't. This has been knocked up. I mean, I think I could knock up something better in my garage in half a day.
This literally makes me want to go and do my fact checking and find out, was this actually the most expensive episode at that point, or was it the cheapest? Because it looks like the cheapest. It really does.
It does. You can almost see the paint drying in the walls in the background. It's just it looks just basic, thrown together, just not very good at all.
I am going to have to do my fact checking. I think next episode I'll be back to you with the facts, hopefully.
Mulder and Scully are travelling back to Houston. They're following Michelle, who crashes her car after a ghost comes out of the fog. Same face that we've seen on the picture for Mars, on the Marcus's ceiling. It just comes out, gives her a fright, and she just crashes the car.
Now this scene, oh man alive. When we're looking from her perspective out the window, there is literally zero visibility.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where literally if you had as little visibility as she has, you would pull over and say, no, sorry, I ain't driving. And then she crashes in what is the worst filmed car crash I've ever seen, because the camera literally spins around to kind of imitate the fact that she's crashing rather than actually showing us a car crashing. And Mulder and Scully were following her. They were right behind because they saw her indicating they're following her. So they can't be any more than 20 seconds behind her. Mm-hmm. So we get this wide shot of them pulling up behind her car. And I swear to God, the visibility has suddenly become exponentially better than what it was when she was looking out from her window.
Yeah, oh yeah, I don't think there's a drop of rain.
There
actually
isn't.
Afterwards,
it was throwing it down when we saw through her window before she crashed. It was absolutely chucking it down, and there was really thick fog. And then literally 20 seconds later, at the most, there's a gentle mist in the air. There's no rain. It's just really badly cut together.
Yeah. So then Mulder and Scully run down and try and help Michelle out of the car, and they're like, it's no good, she's stuck. At which point I'm going like, cool, this one's dead. Can write her off. And when I'm writing my notes, I'm like, Michelle dies, and then they're like, oh, hang on, I've got her, and I'm like, you bugger, Mulder. Because I was waiting on the scene where the car explodes, which always happens.
Yeah.
You know, like them running away, and Michelle in the background just kind of lying there, and the car explodes. But it didn't quite come that way.
So she tells Mulder and Scully what she saw, which is basically this ghost-faced guy. Yeah. It barely registers a response from either of them. And they basically just get on their way as if nothing happened, back to the control room.
Where they try and throw about some technical jargon as if that's going to make us believe they know what they're talking about. And then Mulder, explains it to us and Scully what he actually said. Somebody's blocking their signal.
Yeah, Mulder does that a lot through this episode. He translates everything to Scully. And again,
Scully doesn't speak geek, so...
But it literally, again, just feels like they're hammering this point home that Mulder is this fanboy, he understands everything they're saying. It's just too much.
And then this is the point. At this scene exactly is when I pinpointed one of the major problems of this episode, and it's the score. It's not a tense-filled score. It's almost slapsticky. It's a comedic score put over this.
Easy listening, isn't it?
It certainly is, and it was such a problem in this scene that it really highlighted it the rest of the episode for me. Enough for me to make a note on it, just going like, oh, the score is really bad, like really bad. It's just not good at all. So they go to the data branch. Yeah,
because they basically, from what I got from the jargon, and this is only after Mulder and Scully pull their guns. Yeah. Like literally, they all go running off to this place, and at this point, I'm still like, even with Mulder translating, I'm like, where are they going? And then literally, it's only because Mulder and Scully pull their guns as they go into this room that I realised, oh right, there's someone in there who they've traced. They think somebody's hacked into their system basically, and is sabotaging it. So they pull their guns in a complete lack of tension, and there's basically the lights go out, and then they come back on again, and there's just some dude, just some dude doing his job, and again, no tension.
But they act as if they're majorly pissed off with the fact that it's just some guy, and Mulder gives the command that nobody gets in here without identification or something like that. And I'm thinking, isn't this the space program? Did they just let people in willy-nilly? Are they not already checking IDs and making sure people are vetted before they get in and out? I'm like, God.
Oh, man.
But no, it has to be reiterated that they need to have ID and things. Yeah. So Michelle tells Marcus that someone is blocking their signal, and they give control of the ship to the astronauts. And again, I think this is supposed to be a tense scene.
Well, it also sets up again, well, it doesn't necessarily set up, but continues the idea that Marcus is trying to sabotage this mission, because he's the one who, despite protests from Michelle, tells the crew to fly by wire, which basically means they're going to take control of the ship. NASA won't have any control of it, and they'll be out of communication for as long as it takes for the crew to get this ship back on the right trajectory. So yeah, basically Michelle thinks this is a really irresponsible move, and it all boils down to Marcus wanting to make sure that this payload gets delivered no matter what.
Yeah, and now, so they turn off basically the communication to the ship. And then you have, and I don't know if you noticed this, there's at least 7 or 8 people just in the background just saying, negative. Negative. And I'm like, oh my God.
Are you thinking James Bond? 60s James Bond at this point.
Yeah, I was waiting on the volcano opening up. It's just negative. I mean, I started counting them, and then I just got bored and I stopped counting at one point. I was just thinking, surely it's not going to go on. And then they try to reconnect to the ship, and after an extremely long pause, success, they finally get in contact once again, and everything seems all right for a period of time.
They all have that kind of Apollo 13 cheering and clapping of hands and kind of knowing winks at each other. Wow, we did it! And it feels so cheesy beyond belief.
I would say I was relieved, but I wasn't in any suspense to start off with. So, and then
Mulder and Scully basically have a conversation with Michelle. They ask why Marcus would have taken such a risk, and this is where she says that, look, Congress are looking for any excuse to shut NASA down. And literally one failed mission could be the tipping point between, literally still being in operation and not. So, so it stresses the point that Marcus has everything to lose by not getting this payload delivered. So, again, bureaucracy.
And that's the thing, they never actually explain what this payload is, do they?
No.
They just keep saying payload.
Yeah.
But it's not. It just seems rather weird. They're not going to a space station. They don't seem to be going. They're not going to travel in the space of one day, because that's pretty much what this is over to, like Mars and back. Drop something off. It just seems rather weird.
Yeah, it's so yeah, man. Let's move on.
So Marcus is in staring at himself in a mirror. Then it jumps to his news conference, and he just pretty much lies. And that breaks Mulder's heart just ever so slightly.
Yeah. What I love, though, is how even though we can see that Mulder's heart is literally breaking inside, like literally, if you paused the video, you could see the moment where Mulder's heart breaks. And as if that's not enough, Scully has to lean into him and say, so much for your boyhood hero. It's like she just can't help but take that final pot shot and just make it even worse.
But in all fairness, that's what real friends do. They don't let you get away with it. They just give you that final little twist of the knife. So then you have Marcus and Mulder have a discussion. And Mulder asks him if he thinks it's sabotage, and he said his answer to that will be bring these astronauts home safe and sound.
Yeah, this is actually my favourite scene in the episode. Right. it's pretty evident I don't like this episode. I really do not like it. If I'm going to give it anything, I'll give it this scene. That's literally it, one scene. I like that, Mulder is... He's face to face with a childhood hero who has essentially just broken his heart. And when he kind of questions him on it, the answer that Marcus gives isn't really one that makes you hate him. It's one that makes you understand him. This isn't someone who's out to sabotage the space program. He's just someone who understands that certain things have to get done no matter what, because that's the only way you keep the space program alive. And he's coming at it not just from a bureaucratic standpoint, he's coming at it from the standpoint of someone who's been up there. He was an astronaut. And I like the way this scene plays out, because there's a certain naivety about Mulder and about his questioning and about the way he looks up to this guy. And, they say, don't they, don't ever meet your heroes, because you're going to be really disappointed. And that's what this scene is. It plays out. But it's not just... It doesn't play out just as don't meet your heroes because they're going to be disappointing because they're assholes. This guy is... He's an asshole for a reason. He's got a very good reason to be that way. And so, like, Mulder kind of... It's almost like, you know what, Mulder, it's time to grow up. It's time to grow up, get your head out of the clouds, and look at the reality of the situation. So, yeah, I liked this scene. I thought there was a bit of drama in this scene that worked, and it's just a shame that the rest of the episode doesn't actually kind of follow this, really.
So then we have Marcus at home after this episode, who just, like a man possessed, just straight into that fridge, straight into the vodka, just... drinking it, just downing it. It's almost as if it's filled with water or something these days, just tanking that back. And he's a flashback again to his mission.
It's like, do you think the ghost is alcohol induced? Because it's like he downs that vodka and then suddenly starts seeing visions.
Yeah, pretty much. And the ghost just looks like a cloud, to be fair. But that's when the ghost sort of comes out of him, isn't it, when he's lying in the bed?
Yeah.
So it flies away out into the city and then just evaporates.
And like
he's kind of
Peter
sitting
Pan.
up. Yeah, very much. And he's just sitting up, outreached at it. You don't know if he can see it, if he knows there's something wrong, or does he know he's possessed. It's just kind of unexplained, but not in a good way.
No. Yeah, it does feel... Yeah, it's just a bit dodgy, isn't it? It's like... Yeah. Tacky is what I'd say. It's just...
Yeah, it's just it doesn't sit quite right. But then the next scene, it just leads into something's bumping the spacecraft. So I think we have to assume that this thing's left Marcus and doing a little day trip up to the spaceship to give it a bump, and they're now losing oxygen.
Yeah.
And they're saying that something similar happened to Marcus on his mission, so they need him to kind of help out with information on this. But unfortunately, he's not there. So Michelle's kind of stuck with this mission. She doesn't know what to do. She wants Marcus to help. He's not there, so Mulder and Scully offer to go and get him.
Yeah, so, Mulder and Scully go and get Marcus. Marcus comes to the door, looks pretty nonplussed about it all, really. Just like he's just woken up from a rough night of sleep. And just, he goes back with them, tells the shuttle to get tells the astronauts basically to get into their spacesuits, jettison the CO2, then deliver the payload again. And Michelle really protests at this before just basically leaving. Marcus just says, you don't like it, leave. And she does.
Everybody's a winner. But again, I've got my notes, like, what is this payload? Why is it so magical? Why does it have to be delivered? What the hell is it? I mean, they say payload, I keep thinking to war movies when they're like, you need to get this payload delivered. It's like a bomb of some sort.
Yeah. It's a MacGuffin, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. But so you get Michelle, who runs away and starts crying. Mulder and Scully chase after her. and talk about, is Marcus the saboteur? Should they stop him? And then for some reason Mulder says it needs access to all their records. At this moment I thought, he doesn't care a thing about this, he just wants access to everything to try and get the little green men stuff. I thought he's gave up on all these people and just wants info.
He's still fanboying out, isn't it? It's like, ooh, I can have a look at all their...
but I'm thinking like, is he going to look for little green men files or something like that?
So to be honest, at this point, when they're looking through the files, I honestly don't know what they're looking for. And when they find it, I'm still not sure what it is they've found. It's the X-ray that was sent to Michelle. It's got Marcus's signature on it, which means he knew about it. So he's probably the one who sent it. And yeah, again, I just don't care. What I did notice about that scene, actually, when Mulder and Scully and Michelle are in the corridor, is the rather inappropriate way that Mulder touches.
Yeah.
You noticed it?
He puts his hand on her front and then round her back on the top of her ass cheek almost.
Yeah, she's like riled, and he takes her by the waist, almost in the way that Patrick Swayze takes the chick from Dirty Dancing by the waist. And I'm like, kind of thinking...
I'll tell you who it is, but I've no idea who Jennifer Grey is.
But I'm thinking, you don't really know this woman all that well. You've known her a couple of days, and you're kind of invading her personal bubble. Like maybe touching someone. After that amount of time, maybe on the shoulder, maybe on the arm, but the waist. He puts both his hands on her waist, and it's just like literally. I don't hear anything they say from that moment on, because
he pulls himself in quite close to her as well.
Yeah, and I'm just sat there thinking, that's so inappropriate. What are you doing?
You're going to change it from spooky to creepy, Mulder. So then you've got the astronaut saying that there's something outside the ship, and Marcus freaks out, basically just starts screaming.
Yeah, I mean, this is after they've delivered their payload, so that famous payload finally gets delivered, and then like you say, they see something outside, kind of in the same way that Marcus apparently did when we see his flashbacks. So they see the same thing, and like you say, Marcus then just begins screaming, and it kind of, it's almost funny.
Oh, it is. It's definitely funny, yeah.
Yeah, it's there's no kind of, like, it doesn't send a shiver down your spine like they can do. I mean, there's an episode of the X-Files actually that comes in season 4, I want to say 4 or 5, and there's a moment in that where there's this scream by a character, and it literally sends a shiver down my spine. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing horror, when you're doing something in the horror realm, if you get someone to scream at the right moment, in the right way, it can send shivers down your spine. But this is just funny. It's literally it's like watching a grown man trying to strain one out.
Mm-hmm. So that's a perfect description. So they get like the paramedics to come to his office, and they're strapping him down, and they want to calm him down, they give him drugs, but Mulder just keeps persevering and asking him questions about how they can stop it or whatever, who cares. But basically just it cuts to a ghost Pac-Man. Pretty much eating Marcus. It is just like, I seen it and I thought, that's Pac-Man.
Yeah. And it's just that this thing as well that Mulder does, where he's like, just watch my finger, focus on my finger.
Yeah, and after seeing what he did with the girl, you're kind of going, where's that finger going?
But But it's almost like he's trying a bit of hypnotism, because he's like, focus all your pain into this finger, focus all your thoughts, and it's just like, what are you doing? It's just, Mulder does not seem like Mulder in this episode. Like the character that we've come to know so far in the episode, in like the 8 episodes that we've had, he doesn't seem to be here.
No. And it's missing his smarts. He's usually ahead of the game type of thing, but in this one it's just like those things that he's trying are things that you would see on a notice board saying not to do in these circumstances. You know, don't ever do this. But
so Marcus tells them through Mulder's hypnosis techniques, he tells them that they sabotaged the ship, and that he couldn't do anything to stop them. Basically, it wasn't him; it was them. But he couldn't do anything to stop them. And Mulder and Scully as well, you know, which is something that never gets touched on ever again. Yeah. Mulder and Scully both see the ghost face in him, and Mulder gets him to focus on his finger. Yeah. And
then Michelle pretty much just brings the astronauts home safe and sound.
Yeah, but that's with the help of Marcus. Obviously, Marcus gives them some information about the right trajectory that they need to come in on without getting burnt up. Their re-entry trajectory. And they bring the shuttle down, and they have yet another Apollo 13 moment where they're all cheering, and Scully gives this look to Mulder of, you know, like she's genuinely kind of just heartfelt, and just she's it's beautiful, but I don't feel any of that.
Nope. And then there's the news conference where Michelle lies, you know, and just that you just see Mulder's heart breaking again, you know.
Yeah. So Michelle is basically towing the party line. She's basically seeing it, I guess, from Marcus's point of view. Now, there's a question here as to why does she lie? Does she lie because her job has been threatened? Does she lie because she's now in a position to understand where Marcus was coming from? It's never really discussed. She just lies, and you're kind of left with the question, okay, why does she lie? Because she kind of has she has every vested interest in telling the truth. If anyone here has, you know, a good reason to come out and say, look, this was handled badly, it's her. You know, her husband's life was put at risk, and it's not touched on. She never gives a reason why. She never talks to them and says, yeah, you know what, at the end of the day, blah de blah de blah. It's just no, she lies, and we're left with the question, why?
Yeah, and that's one of the main problems I had with the episode, is you don't get to see the people in space. I mean, it couldn't have been hard to build the interior of a spaceship. It didn't have to be anything fancy.
You do get to see quite a bit of stock footage, which is maybe where the budget went. I don't know. How much does stock footage go for these days from NASA?
So then you've got Marcus struggling with the ghost inside him, and he pretty much just exorcists himself.
Yeah, he throws himself out of a window in order to basically take this thing with him.
And then Mulder just pretty much recounts the full episode for you, you know, just in case you did fall asleep during it. You know, something possessed him in space. Scully doesn't really argue too much.
Well, basically Mulder says possession, Scully says dementia.
Yeah. It just kind of, they're towing each other's kind of moral sort of compass. It feels rather preachy, I found the ending. Yeah. And then it's got Marcus' funeral,
in which we see some stock footage of some red arrows doing a flyby, and people looking up into the sky, obviously not looking at any red arrows.
Yeah. Anyway, that was space. Overall.
I gotta say, just before we kick that off, I was expecting a tease at the end. You know, we've had episodes where...
The little stingers?
Yeah, you get a little stinger at the end, like, oh, maybe there's something still to come. And we don't. It literally just, it goes off into the American flag and then fades to black. And it's like, it's literally... The episode, I really genuinely feel like this episode is trying desperately hard to be a love letter to the heroes, the men and women who have gone into space and furthered the exploration of the stars. And it just, if this is a love letter, I would hate to see hate mail.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a kind of apologist way of saying that, yes, the government's really bad and they may be hiding little green men from us and blah blah blah, but look, they do all this really important stuff as well, and they have to really come up against all these trials and tribulations that they have to overcome, trying to further the human reach into space.
Well, I don't even think that. I don't think that the government don't come off well in this at all, because it's the men and women of NASA who are the heroes here. They're the ones painted as the heroes. The government, Congress, is actually called out. Congress are the ones who want to shut NASA down. The government are the villains in this.
Mm-hmm. Still a crap episode.
It's a terrible episode. It's literally, yeah. Go on, you go. Final thought.
So overall, I think this episode, I feel as if they want to institute tension within the full thing, and they fail miserably. The score is laughably ridiculous, and when I finally pinpointed that, it turned the episode into a farcical sort of comedy, almost like Fawlty Towers kind of thing that was going on in front of me. The ghost itself is ridiculous looking, even by I know 93 standards, it must have looked silly back then and not really gruesome, so to speak. It's just an uninteresting episode. Mulder and Scully don't really move any further forward in the grand scheme of things. You don't learn anything else about the guys at all. And I'm going to give it 1.5 out of 5.
Ooh, generous. Gets a 1 from me. This is without doubt the worst episode of season 1. Basically, it's all uphill from here. It doesn't get any worse than this. So if you want to take a positive away from this episode, take that. It doesn't get any worse than this for season 1. Like I say, I missed this first time around when it was on TV. First time I properly saw it was when I got the box set, and I, for some reason, just did not remember much about it. It is literally forgettable. Everything about this episode is forgettable. There's no tension, there's no drama, except for that one scene between Mulder and his hero. And the characters that we've come to love, Mulder and Scully, just apparently seem non-existent in this episode. They didn't arrive. There was a call for Mulder and Scully, and they didn't come. Their body doubles seem to turn up with no charisma, no drive, none of the traits that we've seen them have in the episode so far. I mean, you go back to an episode like Jersey Devil as an episode we trashed. It's an episode we thought was not very good at all, but Mulder was still Mulder in that episode. There was still moments in that episode where we got a good laugh because Mulder was Mulder and Scully was Scully. Not the case here. It's like the writers of the show, the creative forces, suddenly forgot the show they were making. Terrible through and through. 1 out of 5.
And we're going to quickly move on to the next episode and try and put this one behind us as quickly as we can. And the next episode is Fallen Angel. So where does Fallen Angel fall in the X-Files canon?
Fallen Angel is... I think it's one that fans of the show quite early on they took quite a liking to. I don't think it would be regarded as classic X-Files, but it's certainly a heck of a lot better than Space, and it has a memorable character in it, which will, as I say, because of a lot of love from the fans, he does eventually make a reappearance in season 4, I think. I want to say season 4, in a 2-part special. But yeah, from my memories, it's a slightly above average episode. I think it's got some interesting stuff in it. But yeah, I don't think we're in classic territory by any means.
But it's got to be better than Space.
I think somebody taking a dump on my chest would be better than watching Space again, to be honest.
So we'll see you next time for Fallen Angel.